I'm supposed to have do. Okay. Welcome everybody to the February board meeting of East Bay Community Energy. Thank you all for being here. I see the attendees are lining into the queue, so we'll wait till they come in. It takes a few minutes, a couple seconds there for all to come on in. It looks like they're coming in. Great. And Mr. Clerk, if we can call the roll, and during roll call, we will determine if there are any new board members that we're not aware of yet.
Great. Alameda County. Alameda County. Albany.
Here.
Berkeley.
Kate Harrison said she was ill and not able to make it tonight, and she wasn't sure if her alternate Jesse was available.
Okay. Dublin.
Present.
Fremont. Fremont. Hayward.
Present. Hey, Adrian, I'll note that the Fremont City Council member, Teresa Cox, is showing as an attendee, not a panelist. So she may not be able to say anything. You might need to move her over.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm registering Fremont.
Hey, did I take your spot?
Fremont.
Oh, got it.
Teresa Cox, Fremont City Council member.
Yes.
Thank
Livermore.
you.
Here.
It's one or the other of us. Brittany's coming in, I'm going out.
Newark.
Here.
Piedmont.
My name is Connie McCarthy. I'm an alternate for Mayor Teddy King. It shows up as Jen Kavanaugh, but it's not Jen Kavanaugh. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. They were taking roll. I'm sorry I interrupted. Yeah, it shows up that I'm Jen Kavanaugh.
Great.
It's fine. I'm on. I thought if I took this, I'd boot you out.
Pleasanton.
Here.
San Leandro.
Gotcha. No, Teddy emailed them. Teddy emailed them.
Jen, you're live.
Hey, Adrian, would you please mute
God, this
our
is
colleague?
There's a lot of people
There.
who have names here that
San
are.
Leandro, present. Thank you.
Tracy.
Present.
Union City.
Here.
Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
Emeryville.
I'm here.
And Oakland.
Present, thank you.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. So now would be a good time to, for all those who have not been sworn in yet, to, if the clerk can do that virtually here through Zoom, that'd be great.
Yes. So Directors Valet, Tiedemann, and Kick. And from Piedmont, may I have your name one more time, please?
Anna McCarthy, CONNA MCCARTHY. I'm the alternate for Teddy King.
Yes. Okay. So if you can repeat after me, I'm going to say my name. If you'll say your name. I, Adrian Bankhead, do solemnly swear
I, Connie McCarthy.
I, Aaron Tiedemann, do
Teresa
solemnly
Cox.
swear
I, Brittany Kick, do solemnly swear.
Solemnly
that I will
swear
support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will
that I will
support
support and
and
defend
defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution
of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against
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 all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear the true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will
That I will bear the true faith and allegiance to the
allegiance
Constitution of the
Constitution
United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and
and the Constitution of the State of
State of
California.
California.
That I take this obligation freely
that I take
that I
this
take this
obligation
obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
that I will
that I will and faithfully discharge the duties on which I'm about to enter.
Thank you very much.
What a cacophony.
Thank you. Thank you all. Adrian, could you make me a co-host? Is that possible?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining the EBCE board. Some people were already here in the recent meetings, the recent last month meeting. Want to thank everybody again, especially the relatively newer members of the EBCE board. You are part of a very exciting Alameda County plus City of Tracy organization, and we're doing great things, and we are making a mark statewide among CCAs and in the clean energy world. So welcome to our humble and wonderful board of directors and growing agency. So let's see. Trish from Livermore, I know this. You were being moving on to different things within Livermore. So I want to just give you a chance to have you say a few words in making that transition.
Right. So thank you very much. Yeah. So I am here to just say thank you very much. I came on a couple of years ago, just as this organization was getting going. It was has been a real pleasure to watch it grow, to learn about this. As I have said repeatedly, this has been my biggest learning. It has been a pleasure to work with all of you. One of the things I'm really going to miss is, I think that just working across county lines with everyone, or across the whole county. This is the organization that I'm in that really has every single person in the county, plus Tracy, which is East frequently gets forgotten. I'm always glad to see somebody from Tracy reminding us that the Bay Area is not the center of the universe. It is. We are a larger Bay Area than we think we are. So, Nick, you've been fantastic. Dan, wonderful. Everybody, I've just learned so much. You're going to have a great time with Brittany. She is terrific. I supported her for council because she is terrific. And she'll ask a lot of questions. And that's great. So with that, please let me know what I can do to help, because you guys are doing great work and I continue to support you going forward. So.
Thank you, Trish, for all your engagement and good work over the past couple of years with EBCE, and of course you're still part of the Livermore Council. So good, best wishes on all the challenges you have there, and thank you for your great work. And we welcome Brittany Kick to the EBCE board, and I think you were here last month as well. And thank you for the work you're going to be doing with our board, which could be quite extensive. So, okay, with that, let's see. I see Mayor May from Fremont has arrived. So our Fremont person is here, as well as the alternate. That's fine. Only one vote, but you're both allowed to be listening in, of course. And I think we're ready to move on with the agenda. So as soon as I re-find it on my computer here. Okay, our next part of the agenda is our general public comment. Traditionally, it's for items of interest to EBCE, but not specifically on tonight's agenda. So Mr. Clerk, if you could call any names of people who have signed up in advance or who are raising their hand via Zoom.
Yes, we have 3 speakers: Alita Dupree, Blair Beekman, and Jessica Tovar. I am unmuting Alita Dupree.
Thank you, Board Chair Dan Calvin, members. Alita Dupree for the record. My pronouns are she and her. It's good to be back with you. And congratulations to new members of the EBC board. And my thanks to those who are departing. Please don't be strangers. You know, I think about the work we do and a lot of problems happening in Texas, which only underscores the need for more renewable energy and storage, both on a local scale of development and also in connectivity with the rest of the state and beyond. So this is a new year, and I think that we are doing some good things, made some hard decisions. So how do we build EBC to the next level? Because electricity should be about the heavy loads, not just about powering computers and lights and television sets, but about stoves and hot water heaters. And space heating in my home is electric. And transportation. You know, as you know, BART runs on electricity, as does the New York City subway. And one way that we have equity for people who are of modest means, who don't have cars or can't afford cars, is if they can ride on buses and trains that run on renewable electricity. And so BART is going in that direction, and hopefully someday we can sell BART some electricity and these other agencies that will be using buses. Continue the work of the value proposition, because I want more people to come into EBCE, and I don't want us to lose people, because we offer the public element of oversight, that people like myself can come into these meetings and speak and be a part of the conversation. So as things hopefully warm up soon, and we got to get ready for summer, let's continue the idea of building an all renewable EBCE. It will take time, but I think we will get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I am unmuting Blair Beekman.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. I'm having Zoom troubles. I can't just use the video anymore, the app. I have to use the phone, so thank you. And hopefully you can call me when my time is up. I don't have a timer available. Thank you for the words of the previous speaker. You know, I'm in the same way. I've been here for about a year now, and I've always have mentioned the idea that 2023 was an important year of deciding year, a marker, a benchmark for ourselves, where we are with renewable energy and where we are with sustainability ideas, and how we bring ideas to the local level, and how do we address are we in a better shape to address the future of nuclear? And, you know, with the IPR reports that you gave us back in October, I mean, they offered statistics that were incredibly interesting to me about you offering a massive increase of brown energy in 2023, while at the same time, a massive decrease in solar power and solar storage. Now, I've been writing to yourselves for a few months now to ask yourselves, what exactly does that mean? I attend many city council meetings across the Bay Area, and I'm starting to report on these statistics. And I don't want to be giving off lame statistics to people or frightening statistics. I want to be factual in what I'm doing. I'm hoping someone from your staff, from your board of directors, from your CAC can write to me and just have a conversation. I don't want to be, you know, hysterical about the subject and then create fear and panic. I want to talk about it reasonably and sensibly. What do we have to prepare for 2023? Why is it such a benchmark year? And if it is a year that we're going to have the worries of natural disasters and such, like a large earthquake, why not prepare with our best selves, with renewable energy ideas, with working at the local level. So when that earthquake does happen, we have a good transition process to continue our good practices of renewables. And we don't have to rely heavily on brown energy or the nuclear industry. If that time comes, we have to prepare now. And I hope we can have those open conversations to do that. And it's vital. And it's with that we continue to build really good ideas that we all have about what we can do right now in our lives. So thank you for your time. Hope we can talk more about this subject soon in letter writing. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, to the staff, as a reminder, as we try to do when someone from the public, of course, sends an email to city staff, to our EBCE staff, requesting some clarification, we all always want to do our best to get back to them in a timely fashion. Next speaker, please.
Jessica Tovar.
Hi, this is Jessica Tovar from the East Bay Clean Power Alliance. And I too wanted to uplift the current situation in Texas, the freeze that is affecting people right now. I think it's the third day without electricity. And we should be looking at that as something we should be trying to prevent here in the East Bay. Particularly, I want to uplift that right now people are desperately trying to keep warm and using methods to keep warm that are actually killing them with carbon monoxide, using their cars, using generators that are diesel powered. And just to acknowledge that we need to look at this as something we need to prevent at home. In California, we've been experiencing mega wildfires, power shutoffs that are related to both people's inability to make ends meet, but also to address the planned power shutoffs that are used as a way to prevent fires. And even though they're being pitched as something to prevent fires, we're seeing mega wildfires time and time again. In addition, we're seeing a lot of air pollution. And if you weren't around last summer in August, the pollution was so bad that the sun was blocked and 9 a.m. looked like 10 p.m. at night. So for that, I want to just highlight that your responsibility as East Bay Community Energy is bigger than just providing electricity, but it's about providing resiliency programs that can enable communities to have power in the many crises that we are facing right now. Another thing I want to uplift, so that's just my pitch for more resilience hub in communities that need it the most, that need that resiliency with solar and battery storage, microgrid infrastructure, but also to add that because of this pandemic, many people are facing an unprecedented amount of electricity debt. As a community choice program, I want you to seriously think about what can we do to prevent power shutoffs in this situation and moving forward as a load serving entity for our community. I think that I don't know if it exists in community choice, but it's been brought up time and time again. It was brought up by a member of Union City in the past, as well as from Dublin, that SMUD has a program that we should be looking at and trying to replicate through our community choice program. So I really urge you to do this because that will both retain customers and help people who are struggling at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, are there any more public speakers for public comment?
There are no more public speakers. Okay,
thank you very much. And we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, and that is our consent calendar, which this time around includes approval of minutes of our last meeting, an informational item on some of the smaller contracts entered into as allowed for by through our staff, and then a small $40,000 contract with Public Financial Management on the consent calendar. I will ask, does anybody want to remove anything from the consent calendar or have any questions on any items on the consent calendar? And you're allowed to ask questions without removing the item if you choose to. And also entertain any motions should there be any.
Board President, I'd like to move the consent calendar.
I'm sorry, I couldn't tell who that was.
This is City of Hayward Representative Councilmember Marquez.
I'd like to second it.
Okay. And that was?
Kathy Narron, Pleasanton.
Okay, it's moved by Councilmember Marquez and seconded by Councilmember Narum. Are there any, I see Mayor May, did you have a question or were you going to move the item as well?
I was just going to let you know my name is spelled incorrectly. That's all on the minutes.
On the minutes. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Let's, to the clerk, let's make sure we correct the spelling of Lily May, Mayor of Fremont. And with that correction, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So we'll call the consent calendar as amended. We'll call the roll.
Alameda County.
Aye.
Albany.
Aye.
Berkeley. Berkeley. Dublin.
Aye.
Fremont.
Aye.
Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Aye.
Newark.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Abstain.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
San Leandro. San Leandro. Tracy.
Yes.
Union City.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Measure Plastics.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for that. And now we will go to our next agenda item, and that's our CEO report and the items under that. Nick?
We did hold a, sorry, apologies for that. I didn't recall that I was on mute and had my camera off. We held a special executive committee meeting on January 29th. We held a special meeting in this case because we needed to reschedule it. It had been scheduled for the same week as our board meeting, and typically we like to stagger the board meetings and the executive committee meetings. At that meeting, we covered an overview of our currently open renewable energy and storage RFO, as well as an update on net energy metering policy that we're going to be covering during this meeting as well. We do have a finance administration procurement subcommittee meeting planned for March 10th. And after the appointments of our marketing, regulatory, and legislative subcommittee members, we will be sending out a poll to all the members of that committee to schedule our first meeting of that committee. The primary topic, we do not have any new colleagues that have joined us, as I think many of you, who have been with us for a while and were at our last meeting. We actually have unfortunately been in the mode of having colleagues leave us. Stephanie Cabrera, our longtime clerk, and then a member of our Power Resources team recently took another job. So fortunately, we're going in the wrong direction. Hopefully we'll have some new colleagues to introduce very soon though. On the marketing and account services update front, I wanted to give an overview of the arrearage management program. So Annie, why don't you take it from here? Or I think it was Annie, right? Or was Kelly going to give it?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Annie.
I'm here. Kelly is on the line to answer any detailed questions if there are any. So the arrearage management program was brought to the board previously as part of the approval process for EBCE to participate. Just a quick reminder on what we refer to as AMP entails is basically a debt forgiveness program for a specific set of customers who have a certain amount of overdue balance and who participate in a low income or income qualifying program. This debt forgiveness requires that a customer make on-time payments for 12 months. They can miss one, they cannot miss two in a row, and still remain on the program. The debt forgiveness, and this is what we had brought to the board as part of a condition for EBCE participating in this, that debt forgiveness is going to be reimbursed to EBCE through the public goods charge. So it does not have a financial impact to us as an agency, but can clearly help a fair number of customers. I wanted to bring your attention to this because it did launch on February 1st, so just the beginning of this month. At this point, we have intentionally not done a lot of customer outreach. As a very new program, the process, the application and sort of customer sign up is all going through PG&E. So it's outside of our control. And as we are in close contact with PG&E, they are still building this process and we want there to be a very good customer experience. They are not prepared to do any sort of substantial volume. So we're waiting to see how that process evolves and improves before we send more customers or direct customers to this program. We've done one data exchange, and right now it's a very manual process. So we want to do additional data exchange before we, again, send a higher volume of customers, but we fully intend to do this. What is not in here, but I just want to note, because we had our first data exchange after I had drafted this, we have had a handful of customers, about 115 or so, sign up through PG&E for this program. And we have an expanded, this is somewhat unfortunate, when we first did the analysis, we saw 1,500 eligible customers who met all of these conditions. And I say unfortunate because it means they've either reduced, to increase the number of eligible customers means they're in higher debt. They've now qualified for a low income program. They've been past due for a certain amount of time. That 1,500 customer eligibility base has now gone to 8,500, roughly. This is based on our analysis. So when we do feel that the sort of infrastructure is there to support customers getting on this program and successfully moving through the program, we will do very targeted outreach to that eligible customer base to make certain that they're aware of this program. And so we'll come back in the future and tell you how that's going and what kind of outreach we're doing. Nick, I'm just going to, if it's okay with you, I'll go on to the new community enrollment, which is next in the CEO report.
I think we have two questions though. Annie, hold off.
Okay.
Councilmember Kick.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have any sort of guesstimate about when they will be ready to take on. Are we looking at months or 6 months or 6 weeks?
Kelly?
I don't think we want to wait 6 months. Oh, okay. Kelly Birdwell-Brezovec is on the line, and she is the one directly managing the operations of this. So Kelly, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, happy to talk about this program. So PG&E has been telling us that they expect to have their side in a slightly less manual operations around April of this year. So we're, as Annie said, we're in close contact with them, and we will be checking in with them to make sure that that stays the case. I do think that originally April was maybe part of their intention based on the CPUC's disconnections moratorium. And And that is getting pushed out, but I anticipate that the CCAs will continue to apply pressure to make sure that PG&E is doing the work to get this in place and more automated by April.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Annie, continue.
All right, thank you. I wasn't sure if there was additional questions. So I'll move along to the new community enrollment. So as all of you know, we have our 3 new cities joining us in receiving service. They've been on our board for some time now, but in April, we will start serving customers in Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy. So 60 days prior to the very first person moving on to our service, we begin our pre-enrollment period. That means our first notice is sent out to customers. Those notices are attached to this report so that they're also available on our website. If anyone has questions from constituents, please let us know. We're happy to help out. And those materials are available for you to view and understand. The first notice was a sort of more formal letter in a branded envelope. It is available in 3 languages. We sent that to everyone. So it's English, Spanish, and Chinese. This is a lot more in-language content than we've done in the past, but given the inability to do in-person outreach, we felt that it was important that we had more in-language content for those individuals that wish to be informed in those languages. If we can go to the next page, Adrian, thank you. I'll say that the second notice will be a different format. It's sort of a 3-fold, 4-paneled, more marketing type piece, not a formal letter. It will again be provided content in 3 languages that will go out to mail to those folks who have only a mailing address on file. And if we have an email, we'll be sending that to email to individuals. We're also doing a number of webinars and other outreach. So we've started our paid advertising. You'll see some digital ads, some print ads. We will soon start some commercials on cable, on Comcast. And we did introductory next door agency posts. Those always, it's always unclear. Should you leave the comments on? Should you turn them off? For the most part, we've gotten positive feedback. I do want to remind our directors and alternates that we can see the comments in response to our post. If a member of a local community starts their own thread, we can't see those. So we're happy if you see them. We are happy to help guide you in how to respond, but we cannot directly engage on that thread. That's the way the platform is set up. But there are a lot of people on there, and I think it really helps to get the information out. And we always appreciate if local folks in the thread can sort of direct folks to the proper information, such as these webinars that are coming up in the next several weeks. We have 2 business-focused webinars, and then we have a webinar specific to each jurisdiction that is focused on residential. And I think what I'll just say is, we are seeing a handful of opt-outs. That's to be expected. They are very, very low, below 1%, way below 1% at this point. But in the future, we will come back and let you know about the participation rates that we're seeing in the various jurisdictions. And I think that is it for my section of the CEO report, unless there's questions.
Thank you, Annie. Yes, Councilmember Marquez from Hayward.
Thank you. Thank you, Annie, for the report. I just had a quick question. Based off the materials in the staff report, it looks like residential, commercial both launch at the same time for the new communities. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's just the practice moving forward, because I'm just familiar when Hayward rolled out, I think they started with commercial first, and I think it was like 6 months later we did residential. So I just wanted to have a clear understanding on that's the new practice.
Yes, hard to say if it's the new practice. We'll see when we have additional, if and when we have additional jurisdictions join us. I think given the sheer size of our initial service territory and the fact that these were new systems, back-end data, technology systems, customer support systems, when we were initially rolling out, we wanted to start with our commercial customers. We felt that they were a bit more sticky. It was a smaller group. So that was about 55,000 customers, which is the same as some CCA's total customer base. So we started with commercial, gave ourselves 6 months, and then rolled in 500,000 residential accounts. This time we're enrolling, I think, between 80 and 100,000 accounts total. And given that we have the experience, we felt confident doing it all at once. And April is a good month because you are still in those spring rates. So it's a lower rate, kind of better experience as customers transition onto our service.
Okay, thank you. And then I just wanted to compliment you on your branding efforts. I really like the consistency, the logo, the color scheme. People are starting to pay attention and recognize the branding efforts. So thank you for that as well. And the multiple languages. It did look a little bit wordy, but I completely understand why that was necessary. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hannan.
Yes, Annie, thank you for the report. I want to echo Councilmember Marquez's comment regarding the multiple languages. The more that we reach out to our community in the language that they're most comfortable with, the better in terms of their understanding as to what we're doing and why it's important for them to participate. So thank you for that. And then my other question was, as you see common questions being raised by community members, whether they be from Newark, Pleasanton, or Tracy, would you be kind enough to share those with the board members so we understand somewhat of the mindset of some of our residents who may have concerns about this so that we have that information moving forward? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I can do that.
Thank you. Councilmember Narum.
Thank you. And thank you, Annie, for the presentation. Just a quick question. Are these webinars listed on the East Bay Community Energy website? And if so, where, so that we can post them all over Facebook and that our community seems to really use as a communication tool?
Absolutely. I will have to double check if we already have Facebook posts that you could just share. It's possible they are already in our Facebook feed, but they are listed on our events page. And I can follow up with you. And if they are already on social media, I'll share the post with you. So then you can just share it out.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, is there additional information in the CEO report?
There is no additional information in the CEO report.
Okay, and so Mr. Clerk, do we have any public commenters for this agenda item?
Blair Beekman has his hand raised. I will allow him to speak.
Great.
Hi, thank you. I have a few public meetings tonight, and so I just wanted to quickly offer, my apologies if I was a bit strong in my opening public comment. I'd like to thank the head of the commission, the board of directors, Kyle, for his words to look into the ideas of being able to talk to someone about the issue, because it's part of the good practices of what is innovation and what is, good community energy, I think, is to simply address, questions from the public. And I think that goes a long way, actually, towards the ideas of what can be innovative about community energy. So I'm more than open to what can be different ideas, exactly what to expect in 2023. And you'll be talking about renewable ideas in upcoming items. And so, I'm more than open to hear different ideas. So what to think about and what to expect with the IPR reports and how those can develop, actually, because I think you gave them a great start this fall, and I hope we can see how that you can continue that work and show it in the public process in the following months. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Any more? I see one more hand raised for public comment. Jessica Tovar.
1 second.
Hi, Jessica, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I wanted to just share one of the flaws of the AMP program really is about you have to make payments on time consecutively. It sounds like Annie said you can miss one payment, but you can't miss more than that. And it really assumes that one can recover financially quickly. And there might be some people who maybe their hours were reduced and they still have a job and maybe they can recover. But there's going to be a lot of people who just cannot recover that quickly and won't be eligible for that debt forgiveness, which is why I'm really bringing up the possibility of the local community choice program to be able to do something similar to like the SMUD program. And part of it is retention of your customers, but also, aid in helping them at this time, which is a very difficult time. Another flaw of the AMP program is for people who cannot meet that requirement of paying on time for a year, it will affect their credit scores. And I'll tell you something, when people are down and you affect their credit score for something that was not their fault is a really painful blow. So a lot of folks who really are down and out right now will be subsidizing those who are able to recover. And I really do think that we need to really seriously think about how are we going to help people who are struggling right now. And assuming we go back to normal operations at some point, I think it ethically as a local community program, community choice program, it would be good to come up with an idea, a fund similar to SMUD's. Maybe it could be a combination of people, in the community rounding up their bill and contributing it to this fund, as well as our community choice program putting money towards that. So that's an idea. And then the third piece of that could be, offering money to local community groups, churches, etc., to facilitate people to apply for these funds. So that's another thing. There's LIHEAP, there's CARE and FARA. People don't know that these programs exist and they don't know how to apply for them. So they need facilitation with that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that was an informational item, and I see no more hands raised among panelists or attendees. So we're going to move on to our Community Advisory Committee report. And
Great.
Mary, you're here, right?
Yep, I'm here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the CAC application process tonight. For those of you who aren't aware, you have a Community Advisory Committee that has the opportunity to have 12 members and 5 alternates. At this point, we're running a CAC with 6 people. And there's a number of reasons for that, but that's where we are. We actually just completed an application process, and I'm really pleased to say there were 26 applications. The other thing being is, for those of you who are new, a relatively new policy was put in place where we're seeking representation across 5 different areas in Alameda County. Given where these applications are from, it looks highly likely that if the applications make it through the process and people say that they accept the seat, that we will be able to fill all of the seats in all of the areas, as well as perhaps filling in many, if not all, of the alternates. So I'm really excited to see that happen. Looking forward to determining when they're going to be coming on board to our new CAC. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, Mr. Clerk, do we have any members of the public wishing to comment on this item?
Jessica Tovar has, his hand is raised. I will unmute her.
I'm sorry, that was an accident.
Okay.
But I'm really happy that we have so many applications because we need folks on the Community Advisory Committee. So congratulations. Look forward to that.
Thank you. And I certainly concur with that. So thank you for all those board members and former board members and others who reached out to constituents and various folks in various parts of the county and Tracy, and to gather these esteemed group of applicants. And we're looking forward to. Nick, could you remind us what the process is for narrowing down and filling in the slots?
Oh, sorry. Yes. So what we're going to do is staff will do an initial review of the applicants just to ensure eligibility. Make sure that to the degree that somebody indicated they live somewhere, like if they said they're applying for Tracy, do they actually live in Tracy? And that's not necessarily doing background research, but just like in their application it says for Tracy, they should have a Tracy address. So it's a pretty cursory review. And then from there, we will be sending those applications to the relevant board members from those communities and holding, these will be sort of ad hoc review committees that will be formed for that review. That will occur. And then those board members will make a recommendation to the full board to appoint members to the CAC.
Okay.
So can you clarify, Nick, will the expectation of who will be appointed come back to the board in March?
That would be my hope. It is not actually, staff doesn't make these decisions. It's really the board who will be making these decisions. So we will be making every effort to ensure that, those resources are available to you board members to be able to review those applications and convene and make those decisions. But fundamentally, if board members are unable to do that, then we can't guarantee that, it will occur by March.
So if I could just weigh in, yes, of course, it's up to the board. To the extent that the staff, Nick, that your staff can facilitate that and in a friendly way nudge people along so they're reminded about the need to get together and make those decisions leading up to an expectation of a March board meeting, then we could increase the likelihood that we will actually get it done in March, because there is a tremendous need to fill those vacancies as soon as possible. Okay. I think that's it. I'm sorry, Mary, did you have anything more for the Community Advisory Committee?
Nope, that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And for those of you who don't know Mary, you will get to know her, and she will get to know you, and you're always welcome to call each other. And Mary is the chair of our Community Advisory Committee, doing a great job, and we appreciate her great work. And I think most of you know, but for those who don't, we are unique among CCAs in that we sit it's not the right word, but the chair of the Community Advisory Committee is officially a non-voting member of the board of directors of EBCE. So they have all the authority to comment and weigh in. They are, if I understand Robert's rules correctly, they cannot make a motion, but they can second a motion, but they can't vote on the actual motion. But anyway, but they are a big part of our board, and they get to have a equal say in the discussion of any agenda item. So thank you, Mary, for being here, as always. So we're going to move on to our next agenda item, and that is our mid-year budget report. Nick, is that you or Howard?
That is Jason. We'll be presenting it first, and then I'll be providing some additional commentary. But Jason, why don't you jump on?
I'm dealing with a minor catastrophe at the moment.
All right. Well, let me start, Jason,
Yeah,
and you go from here. Okay.
I think I got it at this point, but if he breaks down, I might need some assistance. But
all right.
So this is the mid-year budget report, and it compares the actuals that we've seen through December 31st with a relative updated projection for the second half of the year until through June 30th. And what we see is, based upon the actuals and these projections, that electricity sales are about 8.3% or 33.5 million above budget amounts. Now, 19 million of that is delayed payment on the PCIA under collection balance account, also known as the PUBA. So the actual retention figure when that liability comes due will be lower. Energy costs are higher by about 4.1% or 14.7 million as compared to budgeted amounts. This is primarily driven, 12 million of which was primarily driven during the August through October heat wave that we experienced. And that caused, most of that was with Cal ISO on balance charges, as well as basis spreads, which is the difference between where we purchase energy and where we sell energy. Overhead is about 3.3% under budgeted costs. This is mainly due to savings that we're seeing in marketing and operations, along with some savings from delayed staffing. EBCE was allotted a specific number for FTE for staffing for this year, and we have not yet filled all of those positions. Interest costs are about 4.6 or 37,000 above what we were anticipating. This is due to additional letters of credit that we've issued. And overall spending is about 3.6% more than budgeted. And again, this is primarily driven based on the higher energy costs that we were talking about for August through October. Next page, please. Thank you. Now, this makes the net position seem really inflated at 655% above what was budgeted, but a lot of that is a delayed liability in PUBA costs. This report has no fiscal impact. And then if we can go to the next table, we can see it as is. Now, a collection or a question that came up in the CAC meeting last night that I will address quickly is that the investment income that is not, that is when we hold cash at our bank, it's held in an interest-bearing account that earns a small interest rate. It is not a risky investment. It is backed by US Treasury bonds. And so that decline is not a loss of that principal. It's just a reduction in what we were expecting to get from interest because interest rates have gone significantly down since budget development.
Jason, why don't I take it on here for a second if you want? It looks
Perfect.
like our little guy is protesting our budget discussion. He's upset about treasuries.
Yeah, he's
treasury yield. The downward pressure on treasury yield is really a bummer for him. So going through, I think Jason gave a really sort of succinct explanation of what's happening with investment income and why that's down. Yeah, again, that's just an exogenous factor to our operations, and because we focus on essentially risk-free investment of our assets, we're not capturing the upswing in the equity markets or Bitcoin or any of that kind of crazy stuff. We're on treasury pegged interest rates. When we look at our uncollectibles, if you recall, at the beginning of our fiscal year, we set a much higher than historically, applied uncollectibles rate. That uncollectibles rate was really meant to reflect the fact that we would expected much higher than previous years non-payment or partial payment. We kind of set that level, that 9.9 million. Generally speaking, kind of a bit of a thumb in the air based on some research we had done looking at the financial crisis and the performance of other utilities during the financial crisis. And so far, you know, we're actually not so far off. We're not so far off from what we've experienced in the first half of the year for our actuals. One of the major reasons we're seeing uncollectibles higher at our mid-year is because we're just seeing more revenue. So if in an absolute percentage basis, I think we're actually just about where we expected to be, which was about 2.5%. So, you know, yes, it's an extra $1 million, but we have an extra $34 million in revenue. So we're generally tracking. You know, I think one of the things we do hope to sort of deploy and to help offset some of these impacts is, you know, we do expect to aggressively market the arrearage management program to our customers. And, you know, conservatively, there are, you know, several $1 million of arrearages, payment arrearages that that would be eligible to be recouped by having our customers participate in the arrearage management program. And that actually directly benefits our bottom line. So there are $5 million of arrearages up from our customers participating, and they fulfill the obligations of the program at the end of that 12-month period. Those arrearages are forgiven, and EBCE is able to actually recover what, you know, our share of those arrearages. So hopefully that accrues as a benefit to us. As we go down through our energy operations, Jason referred to our higher than expected energy costs, largely driven by extreme heat in August, and then just generally higher than expected temperatures into September. Those caused higher than expected energy costs. Yes, they did increase revenue, but energy costs were higher there. I'll sort of skip through the fairly modestly lower data management and PG&E service fees. You know, I think for data management, we have included both our cost per meter, but also some additional changes that we budgeted for. And so far we haven't incurred some of the change orders that we had budgeted for. And I believe we actually have a slightly lower cost of data management baked into our actual is lower than what we had baked into our budget for the second half of the fiscal year. You know, I think Jason really covered the overhead operations and, you know, some delayed hiring, you know, some savings we've achieved in marketing and outreach, general sort of savings in G&A, you know, not spending everything. And, you know, that's what's driving our $661,000 below budget for overhead. You know, I think the key point that, you know, Jason touched on, and, you know, but I want to highlight when we're talking about, you know, the prospect of going, you know, finishing the year with a, you know, $20 million net position is the vast majority, you know, 80% of that results from a deferral of a PCIA payment. And we are going to have a special 1-hour session for any board member, but particularly our new board members coming up in the next month or two, focused on the ins and outs of the PCIA. But very quickly, it's the exit fee that we have to pay PG&E for our customers leaving their service and coming to us. And there was a very, very large increase in the PCIA looming for 2021 that we at EBCE and other CCAs were successfully able to negotiate a spreading of that cost. So, you know, instead of us having to bear a $20 million hit in 1 year, we were able to effectively spread that 20 million over 3 years. And so that's good this fiscal year, because we experience higher revenues, but it also means next fiscal year and the year after that, the PCIA will be higher. And so I think the way we generally look at this as, you know, these are funds we want to hold for that eventuality. So that's, I think, at a high level, it's 42 million in PUBA that we're spreading over 3 years, but we are paying for some of it this year. So thank you, Howard, for having that at your fingertips. So that's the core of what I wanted to share. You know, I think that the overall picture, though, is, you know, we're performing as we expected to perform. We're executing, even though you know, we've had some challenging energy market dynamics. You know, keeping our costs down, managing our energy risks rather effectively, and positioning ourselves well for, you know, the budget setting process that we're going to be kicking off here in the near term and for the next fiscal year.
Here we go. Thank you, Jason and Nick.
Oh, hey, Dan, and I would not want to neglect that, you know, just a very quick comment on local development. So, you know, we set our local development budget at $6.34 million. And, you know, we expect to deploy all of that. We generally take an accrual approach to local development, in that, like, we will accrue expenses, but we don't actually see money go out the door immediately. So, you know, we still have a significant portion of that 6 million that is awaiting to be spent, shall we say, as programs are launching, as customers are participating in the Resilient Home program, as grant checks are being cashed. But the way we treat it is, these are the funds we're going to spend this year, and so that those expenses have been accrued, and in some cases may actually have to carry over to the next fiscal year to actually be spent.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to first call on any public speakers, and then if any board members have questions or comments, we'll go there. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public speakers on this?
Jessica Tovar, the hand is raised. I will unmute Jessica Tovar.
I wasn't raising my hand. Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. I think I see one more public speaker.
Blair Beekman's hand is raised. I am unmuting Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm having Zoom troubles today, so thank you very much. For this item, I just wanted to thank yourselves. I guess overall, this has been an incredibly difficult and trying year for everyone, and with their budgets, and state funding and federal funding ideas have really come through in a really important way, that we can understand how it can help address our issues. And with that, you know, you guys have just done an amazing job to make sure that we're safe, and we're above water and have good practices and everything. And thank you. Wherever I go, city council meetings, I always talk about your work and how you kept so incredibly cool in the first days of COVID and described your budget, and I described your budget situations and how it can be of help in with other cities and government agencies. In fact, the city of Fremont tonight they're in a new year of budget cuts, budget issues they have to address, and to simply, offer them, what you've gone through the past year to maneuver around budget issues, I think can be of tremendous help to them. And so thank you for that. With that said, it was mentioned at the CAC meeting last night, where is there a sense of wanting to, with the new future we're starting to forge now, is there a sense that you can set priorities towards, interesting new renewable ideas and ways to budget that a speaker spoke last night, I think, about the ideas of, we're stuck in some budget patterns that simply continue the same old system. And a lot of that has to do with nuclear as well. And are we prepared to start to address those issues now? Can we at least be talking about those issues now? And as something that, from what I've said, 2023 seems like a major benchmark year in whatever will take place. I just hope we have the conversations now that we need to, and whatever will happen by 2023 will be prepared by then, and we can just make a really quick transition to what we really need to be doing. And I mean, if 2023 is a setup towards our good future, why not work on those things now and really set up, look at our budget practices. How do we step away slowly from nuclear dependence and other practices that are just bad habits at this point? So good luck with your budget issues, and thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see here. Do any board members have any questions or comments on our mid-year budget report? Councilmember Lopez from San Leandro. Go ahead, Karina, we can't hear you. Karina, try it again. I'm not hearing her. Is anybody else hearing her?
Nope.
I'm sorry, Karina, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. I don't know why though. You seem unmuted.
How about this? Is this better?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Great. Wonderful. Let me just, sorry about that. Oh, I'm not sure what's going on, but anyway, so I just wanted to thank you for the information, and especially to you, Finance Manager Bartlett, for such an endearing budget report. I have to say that was the cutest budget report I've ever been through. And so hopefully we have more of that. And so the question I just have, generally speaking, is there an expectation at year end, or whenever the year ends for this particular budget cycle, that it will net out to be balanced versus showing this anticipated or expected negative? Bottom line negative.
I'm happy to address that. Nick, you want to take it?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say with what we're forecasting right now, our best projection is the $20,924,000, which reflects actuals for the first half of the year, and then our sort of our best forecast for the second half of the year. There certainly is risk and variability to that number. I would say that the greatest risk is probably in the cost of energy section, depending, as we're seeing in the very extreme weather conditions in Texas and really throughout the country right now, there's quite a bit of volatility and variability that we as a electricity provider can experience. So that number, is not a sort of a concrete number. It can definitely shift around, but that is our best forecast right now. In regards to your statement around whether it will be a balanced budget, so I don't think we would predict that it would go down to zero and therefore as a balanced budget. I think that's good news. But I think it is important to understand that the PCIA under collection balancing account, the PUBA, represents a deferral of costs that we owe related to the PCIA. So even though our net position is better than we had forecasted, the reason for that, just to emphasize, is mostly because there's a deferral of this payment into future sort of months and 2.5 years actually after the fiscal year cycle. So I think it'll.
So it's beyond. I'm sorry, just very quickly. So it's beyond this particular fiscal cycle. Just curiosity, why not, instead of showing it here on like this particular income statement, so if you will, why not have it showed as an accrued liability on the balance sheet instead of having it here?
I think the challenge with showing it as an accrued liability is it's a bit hard to pin down the magnitude of the liability because it's a there's interplays between between it and other factors in the PCIA, and it shows up as a sort of an increase in the power charge and difference adjustment into the next year. So I think we had that very discussion. Should this be an offsetting liability on the income statement? And I think our concern was we have a lot of specificity about what the increased revenue is, but we have more of an estimate of what we think the liability is. And so we were worried that putting an estimate in the income statement would not be appropriate.
And it can rebalance the other direction from future periods of PCI adjustments. I think that's also one reason why there's uncertainty around that.
But it's absolutely the right way to think about it. And so I think we've just struggled, I think we were even having conversations with our outside accountant about, is there a way that we could formally treat this? And he didn't have a good answer because it's this sort of regulatory expense.
Yeah, I think at the end of the year, we would plan, these are of course unaudited, sort of just a budget forecast at the end of the year as we, especially as we undergo a specific audit, we'll likely want to revisit this with the board, whether we would perhaps put some of that into the revenue deferral fund as sort of a reserve. So there are other ways to account for that, if not technically as a liability in the finance.
The other factor I think just worth noting is, and I think one of the challenges when we think about accounting for it on our income statement is we don't actually pay the PCIA. So this PUBA charge is not something that EBCE is responsible for. It's our customers pay it. And in paying that, it forces us to reduce our rates. So if we want to maintain a 1% discount and the PG&E rate, the PCIA charge increases, it forces us to reduce our rates to continue to compete with the PG&E rate. And so that creates just one additional layer of complexity, is that it's not even our liability. It is a liability that you would apply to future revenues if you want to maintain a discount.
I appreciate all that, and I don't want to take this conversation too much more, in terms of, I want to be respectful of my colleagues and the agenda overall, but it might make sense to have an offline conversation about maybe, some other ways and so forth. I'm only thinking about sort of how it looks and how it appears in terms of our conversation last time about with our credit rating and so forth. And just not showing like a net loss on our income statement, certainly. And it just, I'm just thinking out loud. Thank you very much.
Any more questions?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised. And this is an informational item, right?
It is.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, and that is agenda item 10. Annie, are you on this one as well?
Yes, I'm covering this one as well. So this is an informational item. I just want to make that clear at the start. We're looking for feedback and a response from the board. Our intent is to, based on that feedback, present a final policy next month, along with a request for the board to approve a default product change for the city of Dublin. So with that preface, I'll state that this is a presentation of a potential policy or a policy recommendation that was triggered by the city of Dublin requesting that the EBCE board move all of its residential customers from the default of Bright Choice to a default of Renewable 100. So effectively, it is a mass opt-up of residential customers, with the exception of those customers who are participating on income qualified programs such as CARE, FARA, and then also on the medical baseline allowance program. So this really triggered for us the need for an overarching policy that gives directions to any city that might be contemplating this. We do know that there are a handful of cities thinking about this, and we wanted to have a standard policy that was established and clear so that jurisdictions could make these decisions and we can implement them in an effective way that has a good customer experience and doesn't jeopardize our operational procedures. So as we began to think about this policy, this is the first time that any jurisdiction within the EBCE Joint Powers Authority has requested a change in the product after initial enrollment. So the cities of Albany and Hayward in our first round, and Piedmont, and now Pleasanton in our expansion round, did request and are requesting, have been approved, to have a different default product when customers were moved from PG&E electricity service to EBCE generation service. So we facilitated that in the past. We'll be facilitating that for Pleasanton coming up in April. But this is now an example of, after 2 years of service, a city saying we would like to change an entire customer class from one product to another. So we looked around. There is only one other CCA that I'm aware of that has implemented a similar default product change. And this is down at Clean Power Alliance, which is LA County's CCA. They are a very large CCA. Their JPA, I think, has 80 plus members. So they clearly need to have some standard policies in place in order to manage that many jurisdictions. They also have 3 products. And so they have in their, they launched after we did, I think within maybe 6 to 12 months after we did. They have already seen some cities make this type of request. And so if you want to go to the next page, Adrian, if folks are following along in the staff report, thank you. So we looked at what the Clean Power Alliance has done, and we were able to look at examples of the city of Malibu and the city of Sierra Madre, both of which their local city councils made the decision to, similar to Dublin, go from a standard product to a 100% renewable product. They made that decision in 2019, and the policy that CPA has is that they will implement changes in October of every year. So they just went through this process in October of 2020. So wonderful case study for us to look at, especially given that they've made this change during the pandemic, which I think is extremely unique to what we're seeing, in the world. If this had happened 3 years ago, it might not be as relevant today. So what we saw based on public information and our conversations with CPA staff is that from the residential, and they did both residential and commercial, but they reported out just on the residential enrollment changes, about 0.5% of customers did opt out during this excuse me, during this period when they changed the default product. And then additionally, 3% of customers exercised what we like about community choice, which is choice. And they decided they wanted to remain on the standard service. And so wanted to point that out again, as these are the only data points we have really to go on, as we have never done this ourselves within EBCE's JPA. So what we're presenting here tonight is a policy, and I'll highlight some of the key components. Unlike CPA, since we do not have 80 plus members, we do have 15, we would like to support the facilitation of these types of requests twice a year. So it would be, implementation would occur in March or October. And we are asking that any local, meaning jurisdictional level request come to our board 6 months in advance of either March or October, so that we have the appropriate time as staff to do customer outreach, to do operational adjustments, to adjust our procurement plan, and make certain that this is a good customer experience and does not present risk to the rest of our customer base and our procurement plans and so forth. So we would again say 6 months notice from the city for the board to then take an approval action, and then it would be implemented in either March or October. The reason we selected those months, similarly to what CPA has decided, is because that is when customer retail rates are lower. And so we think this would be a better customer experience, because in most cases, what we've seen, and the one example we have so far with Dublin, is that cities are asking to opt up a customer segment. And so their costs would increase, and we think it's better to do this in the months when bills are typically lower. The other thing that we are asking is that when a city makes this request and it is approved by the board, that it only occurs once every 2 years. We don't think it is a good customer experience for customers to be moving on a more regular basis. We thought that this seemed like a reasonable time frame. I will note that since this was drafted and presented, we have had additional conversations with some city staff, and I propose that in a next round of this policy, when it comes back to the board to be finalized, that we also add something about, well, how does this apply when a product is being closed, like Brilliant 100? So we have cities like Albany and Hayward and Pleasanton soon to come, who are not choosing to do a default product change. It is coming about because that product is being closed. So how is that handled within the context of this policy? Because what we are also stating is that, yes, it could occur once every 2 years, with the, I would say, exception of when a product is closed. We are also stating that, it would be part of the policy. Of course, we have to do the operational adjustments. We would also like to make it part of the policy that there are 2 customer notifications that are sent out to the impacted customers that are part of the default product change, and that the agency would cover those costs, which I don't know the specific costs, but based on past operational adjustments that we've had to do similarly, I'd say that would cost $15,000 to $20,000. And then for the notifications, let's assume there's 40,000 customers, I'd say it'd be anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 for that notification. So you're looking for anywhere from $55,000 to $70,000 to implement for a community roughly the size of 40,000 accounts. So we are stating that after the initial default product change, if 2 years later a city asks to do this again, that at that point the city would be asked to cover those costs. If we could go to the next page, please, Adrienne. And again, I do think that this policy was drafted without thinking about, again, the closure of products. So that is a revision that I'm verbally offering up here. The fiscal impact, as I stated, is that any initial changes would be absorbed by the agency, but then future changes we are proposing would be covered by the jurisdiction making the request. There would also be, as we noted from the data points at Clean Power Alliance, a small potential opting out of customers, and so there's some small revenue loss there. But those are the two financial impacts that we've identified at this point, and then the proposal is attached to this information item. So I welcome your feedback and thoughts on this as an informational item to be brought back next month for hopefully approval, and then to also approve Dublin's request to opt up residential customers to Renewable 100.
Thank you, Annie, for that presentation. So a reminder, colleagues, this is tonight, this is for informational purposes, but the staff is requesting feedback and comments and questions which can help modify possibly what is presented to us next month. I see a few questions in the queue, but first I think I'm going to take any public speakers. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public speakers on this item?
Yes, we do. Jessica Tovar has his hand is on the speaker list. I will unmute her now.
Great. I'm not hearing. Jessica, are you there? Okay, well, we'll try to get back to her after we hear from some of the board members. Could be a little glitch here. Okay, so I'm going to take questions and comments from board members. First, Mayor Hernandez from Dublin.
Thank you, Chair Cal. First of all, I just want to say thank you to both of our staffs working together to bring us to up where we're going to be 100% renewable 100. We're super excited as a city to move forward. We're trying to meet our climate action plan. And again, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this forward, and also for the staff being present at our council meeting for our council members when they had questions that evening. But thank you for the report, Annie.
Thank you. Councilmember Kick from Livermore.
Couple of questions. Is this just opting up? Does this policy only apply for opting up, or does it apply for any change? What if a city decides they want to opt back down? Does that count? And then when it comes to the 2 notices, if they decide to change a second time, are those notices going to be standardized in any way? Will each city be required to ensure that they are dual language or multi-language, or do they all need to be mailers? Can they be text messages? Like, how specific are we going to be requiring jurisdictions to get those 2 notifications out, or will that be up to the jurisdictions?
So there are certain regulatory obligations that we have to fulfill. So for instance, text messages are not a permissible form. But I think in terms of the content itself, that largely is going to be, you would expect to be directed by the city. And in particular, if a city is covering the costs of that communication, that's something we would expect the city to with again, the other limitations may be we only have, we don't have every email address. So let's just say we have about 40% of customers we have an email address for. So you're going to be necessarily limited by that.
And then does this only count for opting up, or just changing your standard?
I think we view this as sort of a material change, and the reason we want this report is because it changes our procurement. So we have to adjust things we buy on behalf of those customers, and that's really the driver of the timeline, to ensure that there's sufficient time for us to adjust the things that we're buying on behalf of our customers.
I do want to make one clarification. this policy is intended to be applied to when there's a product change for sort of an entire customer class. If it is just your municipal accounts, this policy doesn't apply because you're the customer of record as the city. So you can do that. Depending on the size of your city, we might ask for a little bit more time to implement just from a procurement standpoint. But your municipal accounts, if they're on Brilliant 100, for example, if you wanted to opt those up or down, you would not abide by this policy.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Mayor May, Fremont.
Yes, hi. So that's what some of the questions I was going to ask were asked by Ms. Kick, Commissioner Kick, but wanting to make sure that we do thorough outreach when there's those types of situations, because we've had this conversation as a board and making sure that our consumers are aware and be able to do the outreach in different languages and through different media, I think is very important because we want to show that we are transparent with this conversation. I also just wanted to quickly thank that we had a discussion last night, a hearty discussion on our council regarding changes for municipalities and trying to understand what those options were. And I want to thank Alex DiGiorgio as well as, I apologize, I don't know if I wrote the other member's name down, apologies, for coming to that discussion, because we as a city and municipalities are focusing on right now updating our climate action plan. This is our second one. And we want to make sure that we're looking at all those different considerations. But much like my fellow municipalities, we're also facing some difficult budget constraints. And so we had defaulted in looking at trying to make the decision in September post our true up for the current fiscal year. So as we look at, and we were trying to understand what the time frame was in terms of if we had to make an adoption. We recognize and are cognizant, as you talked about earlier about your mid-year budget report, how this impacts your purchasing, how it impacts your planning, but also for our city, that would be a good balance between the two in terms of, I think our goal is definitely to go ultimately to renewable 100, but being cognizant of our budget and that we've had made so many difficult budget cuts and are trying to figure out what we can restore before we take on additional impacts. But certainly very happy to hear about this discussion about how it could reflect in our communities and how we could utilize this information and planning if we're going to talk to our constituents in the future about this moving forward. Thank you.
Great. Good comments. Thank you very much. Councilmember Naram.
Yes, thank you. So I just have a couple things that I think maybe need a little bit of clarification. Obviously, I'm new to the game and we haven't actually, even gotten our energy yet from the EBCE, but looking forward to it. So on number 5C, where it talks about covering the cost of operational adjustments, I would like to see that a little bit more clarity with that and what that is, and maybe some kind of estimate, just so that down the road, I anticipate we will be moving our residents up to the renewable 100 as part of our climate action plan. And I think it's important that we understand upfront what the cost impacts could be to us. So I would ask if there's a way just to expand that a little bit. I think it would be helpful, maybe not now, but down the road. And my second comment is on 6B. I assume that the member would be paying for the additional notifications. And if that in fact is correct, that might just be something that we would want to add in there, that would be the cost by the member if they chose to do the additional communications. So again, it's just clear what the expectations are, or what the cost expectations are when, if and when somebody chooses to opt up or opt down, it's what the implications of that would be. But overall, I think this is great. Like I said, I think Pleasanton, we anticipate, down the road, trying to opt everybody up into the renewable 100. But first, we just got to get everybody in, and then we'll be able to to look at that. So thank you.
Councilmember Nairn, can I ask you actually a clarifying question
Sure.
about, because this is obviously an informational item, we'll be bringing
Right.
this back for action. Because we can't necessarily give a specific quote of it will cost X or Y. Would it be helpful for us to at least provide illustrative illustrative prices to say when we, for a city of say Pleasanton size, if you wanted to notice 50,000 by mail, that typically costs us X, or, when we do it by half mail, half email, it costs Y. So like just have a table that sort of generally sort of shows, for every 10,000 every 10,000 notifications, it costs something.
Right. I think that would be great. We tend to be conservative in our budgeting and we like to know what we're getting into. And like I said, I just anticipate, at some point when Pleasanton would be looking to opt up, that those would be questions that would be asked. And so it just seemed like since we're reviewing this, it would be a good opportunity to somehow incorporate that in. I agree with you. I wouldn't expect, a hard number, but just some examples as you suggested, I think would be helpful. And there's no misunderstanding when you go and present a member the bill. They know what they're getting into. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Councilmember Tiedemann.
So my original question was going to be about how this applied to cities that their default plan no longer existed and had to change. So I just wanted to thank you for offering that would be taken up in a next version, and hope to see that, as I know Albany will have to take advantage of this plan going forward when we decide on what our new default energy is going to be. So thank you for that, and looking forward to that new version when we take action on it.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hand raised. We're going to go back to, I believe, is Jessica Tovar. We were trying to get a hold of her. Did she want to speak on this? Jessica, I don't know if you could hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm so sorry. I stepped away. That was totally my fault.
No problem. Would you like to speak on this now?
I just realized the thing with the button. It's I'm gonna blame it on Mercury in retrograde. Just real quick, one of the things that we really emphasize that it really is all about like educating your residents, your customers, so that they support, the local community choice program. And that really our road to a true 100% clean energy future is the investments in the local development business plan. So I just want to uplift that and, honor that East Bay Community Energy's, promise is that, when you do opt up to Renewable 100 and you make that commitment, you're also investing in not only East Bay Community Energy, but the investment in the local development, which is where like a true just transition for a local Green New Deal is really innovative and unique about this program. So I just wanted to honor that and say that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just make a quick comment. Obviously, on one hand, very big hand, everybody wants to encourage as many customers or help move as many customers as we can to the cleanest and greenest choice that we have. I know there was an example given from Dublin or any city really that the CARE and FARA and medical baseline customers would be exempted from this increase. That's very logical, of course, but most jurisdictions, certainly in Oakland, most jurisdictions, there are additional ratepayers who maybe are not in any of those three programs who are still of modest means and may be struggling, especially now, who may not be in those programs. Maybe that's hair splitting and it's not going to affect that many people in that big a way anyway, but I just wanted to acknowledge that those three programs that exist, that's all we have right now, but that won't cover everybody who is legitimately low income, just as an FYI. Okay, Annie, did you get some helpful feedback, would you say? And of course, as a reminder, any board member can email or call, but email Annie or Nick between now and the next board meeting with additional thoughts and comments and questions as you need to. Annie, any questions that you have of board members right now that you need answered now?
No, this has been very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this. Okay, so that is no action item today. So we're going to move on to our next agenda item. Excuse me. That's agenda item 11 on energy net metering. And let's see, JP and Kelly.
Great, thank you. Good evening, EBC board members and members of the public. I'm Kelly Brozovic, Senior Manager of Account Services. JP Ross, VP of Local Development, Electrification and Innovation, and I will discuss some recommendations to update our net energy metering program. For those of you that were at the executive committee meeting last month, this may be a bit of a repeat, and we did appreciate your input at that meeting. Next slide, please. Thanks, Adrian. So net energy metering is the mechanism of how we bill customers that have self-generation, typically solar, like rooftop and residential homes or commercial parking lot photovoltaic systems. So let's review EBCE's net energy metering policy and what some customers might be more familiar with, but really it's still complex, PG&E's programs. To get some shared vocabulary and how to discuss this complex billing mechanism. So both EBCE and PG&E allow customers to accrue credits on their retail rate, and those credits will roll over from month to month. So if a customer overgenerates, meaning that they generate more electricity than they use that month, they will receive that credit that will remain on their account. The cash out or true up that is done for EBCE, some customers today receive a slightly higher cash out at the end of a year. PG&E customers do that cash out at the net surplus compensation rate, which is about 2 to 3 cents. So more of a wholesale rate. The difference though, really, as you can see on this chart, is that PG&E customers go through one annual true up. So any debt that they've accrued over the course of the year is held on their account, and then the customer pays that bill at the end of the year, or they receive compensation for that overgeneration. On the EBCE side, the credits are maintained from month to month, but if the customer goes negative, meaning that if they have accrued debt, they've undergenerated compared to their usage, then we bill them for that at each month when they don't have credits to cover their usage. All right, let's go to the next slide. So with some of that vocabulary in mind, just looking at EBCE's current NEM policy, today we have 3 different varieties or flavors of NEM. And we've found that we are paying for overgeneration at rates that are costly. And as our installation and survey data have shown, which you'll see later on this presentation, don't provide the benefits that we had intended at the start of the program. All right, let's go to the next one. So here's a breakdown of those 3 programs that we have today. So let's look at these different columns. This is taken directly from our NEM tariff. So the first 2 columns go together. There's the customer type, that's sort of the program name, and then there's also the NEM and customer description. So that's sort of what program they're on and how they're able to identify themselves. The next 2 columns are about how the customer accrues credits. So that's from a month-to-month basis, and then how they're cashed out at the end of the NEM year, which for EBCE concludes in April. So generation charges are all trued up at the end of in April. I did forget to mention with PG&E, the interconnection date dictates when the customer gets trued up, and there is still a PG&E delivery true up even with EBCE and our generation. So the customer does have sort of two different NEM schedules potentially. Staying back to this slide though. So the monthly settlement is how much that extra generation is worth during a single bill cycle, which is about 30 days. So EBCE, like PG&E, provides the customer with a credit that's equal to the amount the customer would have paid for that same amount of energy at the period of overgeneration. It's the retail rate. Our new low-income and municipal customers benefit from an extra penny on top of that retail rate. Last, we have the annual settlement. So during our annual cash out every April, any extra kilowatt hours or NEM credits that they have sitting on their bill can get converted into cash. If the customer is an existing NEM customer, meaning that they had interconnected before EBCE started service, they're cashed out at the NSC rate. Again, that's that 2 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour. And if they are new NEM, meaning they had started service after EBCE, then they're paid out at that retail rate. So whatever they have sitting in their account, they get paid out. Similar for our new low-income municipal customers. I'll note here that since EBCE is paying out some population of customers at the same rate as PG&E, we also do a check to make sure that our monthly true-up, which is different than the annual true-up, isn't causing any customers to receive less of a payout. So in April, we do sort of a scan of all those customers and make sure that we are compensating the customer similar to what they would receive from PG&E. All right, so next slide. So with all that in mind and how much time it takes to describe those programs and understand what we're talking about with NEM, we're proposing these following recommendations. So first, we'll complete the NEM true up or cash out under the current policy. So whatever policy you're enrolled in today, that's what policy you'll get cashed out at in April 2021. After April 2021 cash out, we'll move all of our customers to one single NEM policy, tentatively called the 2021 NEM policy, excluding our current low-income and municipal customers. We would then close enrollments into the low-income and municipal customers, and we would encourage participation into a new resiliency program that's targeted to low-income and moderate-income customers. And all of our new communities would be enrolled into that 2021 NEM policy. Okay, so that's our recommendations, and let's go on to the next slide. So this here is the same recommendation. I'm just showing it to you in sort of picture form because I know that's a little bit easier for some folks to understand. This is the timeline of sort of when we've done our cash outs, when we enrolled our customers. And so you can see here that we'd be taking these sort of 3 different colors, and really we'd be focusing everyone into just this one single program with a grandfathered smaller population that's in that low-income municipal program. The next slide is just a sample of what the updated NEM tariff might look like under this proposal. You remember the previous tariff where we had, 3 different, sort of an additional row here. So now we just have the 2 rows. And so this is what we would propose, sort of a sample of what the tariff might look like. So now I'm going to hand it off to JP to talk through the data that we used to come to this proposal.
Thanks, Kelly. Good evening. So if we go to the next slide, Adrian. Before we evaluated changing this policy, or in the process of it, we wanted to analyze whether or not this current NEM policy was having the desired impact. The policy was put in place in an effort to increase and support solar system deployments within EBCE's territory. But we now have a run rate and have been providing service to customers for a while now. And as Kelly and Gabrielle had analyzed the cost of this program in comparison to PG&E, we wanted to determine whether or not it was having that impact. So we did this in a few different ways to really see whether or not solar systems in EBCE's territory and the rate of installation was increasing based on this policy. One would assume if you're supporting and providing a higher incentive for a particular outcome, you should then see an increase in those results, an increase in solar system deployment. So we did that in a few different ways. The first was to look at the growth of solar systems in Alameda County and in this case, Tracy, and really looking at kind of two like areas. So we, instead of looking across all of Alameda County, we looked at the growth per 1,000 residents in the Tri-Valley area. So existing communities of Livermore and Dublin, and then our new communities, Tracy, Pleasanton, and Newark, as kind of two locations that are fairly close, proximity-wise, and that had these two different policies. So if our Nem policy was, resulting in higher uptake, we would expect that the solar installations per 1,000 residents in Dublin and Livermore should have seen some kind of an increase, whereas the solar installations in Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy that didn't have that Nem policy would be different. And what we see in the gray box here, which is kind of our launch timeline, is one, that there's a lot of volatility in the installation of PV systems, but we don't really see a market increase in installation rates in the areas where our Nem policy was offered. Dublin, which is the purple line, we actually see kind of a decrease towards the end of 2019 and early end of 2018 and early 2019, and the other ones are quite volatile. And then they're kind of fluctuating with the market more than anything. Then we also wanted to ask our customers. So we surveyed the customers who were in our new Nem category, so people who had purchased and installed solar after EBCE started providing service. And we asked them if they were aware of our policy and if our Nem policy had an impact on their decision to purchase solar. And so that's the graph on the bottom right. And so the survey responses indicated that 89% said that our Nem policy had no impact on their decision to buy solar. 2% said that it decreased their interest. That may be because of the monthly and annual true up, but we don't have a lot of insight on that. And then a small portion, 9%, did indicate that it increased their interest. But overwhelmingly, customers were not buying solar because of EBCE's Nem policy. And then lastly, we kind of dug under the covers a little bit and asked ourselves, well, are customers buying solar with a financial expectation based on EBCE's different Nem policy? So we've been doing some work with Energy Toolbase for some of our other resilience-based work. So I talked to the folks at Energy Toolbase, who provides a lot of quoting for solar companies in the area. And I asked them if the intricacies, the pieces of our Nem policy that we are planning to adjust, were even kind of built into their tool. And they basically said, no, they treat Nem customers and Nem rollover payments just like they would with PG&E's payments. So it's not like customers are getting quotes, at least for the customers who are being quoted by Energy Toolbase, which does do a lot of quoting for different different installers in our territory. It's not like they're getting some financial assumption about this additional retail true up and monthly rollover. So through the evaluation that we've done, it felt pretty apparent to us that this program is not having the desired outcome, which is increasing solar installation rates in our territory. That's the evidence, what the evidence I think pretty strongly suggests. Next slide, please. So, with that, what we did want to confirm is that we do have our low income and municipal NEM policy, which is the additional penny per kilowatt hour for net excess payments. And recognize that, our municipal customers and certainly our low income customers who have opted to install solar on their homes or facilities, that's a particular customer class that we don't want to take something away from. And so we're already running this program, and our plan would be to continue to offer it for the existing customers, low income and municipal, who have installed solar since we started to provide service. It's a fairly small number, about 10 facilities on municipal accounts and 500 low income customers. That's costing us about $10,000 a year for the customers that we have 12 months of usage for. So ongoing, that'll be about a $30,000 cost, to support that above and beyond what PG&E would have compensated. But in order not to, take something away from, a vulnerable or, municipal customers, we don't plan to do that. And we are now offering programs that are supportive of solar and storage for our municipal accounts, as well as our Resilient Home program, which has a target, of providing resilience to low-income customers, both homeowners as well as multifamily renters and people residing in multifamily apartments. And so we have a couple of existing programs that are really targeting this exact thing, but with a resilience focus as opposed to trying to do it through a NEM policy. So we plan to close this to new enrollments, leave the program for existing customers, and then as we enroll new customers and new cities, be offering our Resilient Home program and our municipal efforts for resilience, to those new facilities and customers on a go-forward basis. Next slide, please. So this is the numbers behind what I just spoke to. So the current program is costing us just over $10,000 based on the customers for whom we have 12 months of usage. That's about a third of the base. So all in, we expect the low income and municipal NEM policy as it stands today to be about $30,000 in addition to what PG&E would pay on an ongoing basis. And again, our proposal is to leave that in place for those existing customers. Next slide, please. So the financial impact of this change is fairly sizable. So here, again, this is based on an analysis of customers, NEM customers for whom we have 12 months of usage. It's about a third of our customer base, because as we enroll NEM customers, we've enrolled that on a kind of a rolling basis. So we don't have a full 12 months usage for everyone. And based on this comparison to what we would have paid if we had cashed out at NSC, we would be saving about just over $200,000 for these customers for whom we have 12 months of usage. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that that assessment is about $245,000 for those customers with 12 months of usage. Then we would cash out customers based on the NSC payment. So that's $45,000, $45,000 estimate. So as of now, it's about a $200,000 savings for, based on a third of our customers. So for our entire customer base, we estimate that this change to the policy will save all of EBCE's customers about $600,000 a year on an ongoing basis. It's important to note that these cost estimates are based on where we are today. So as we enroll new communities, there's a chunk of new load and new customers and that we would be taking on. And then there are about 6,000 to 7,000 new solar systems that are installed each year. And so if we were to retain our new NEM policy, these savings numbers would grow, because if you were to retain our existing policy as it is, we'd be offering those customers those increased compensation rates. And so the cost of the existing NEM policy would grow pretty strongly, certainly as we enroll new customers and new communities, and then new customers across all of our communities. If they were to go solar under our existing NEM policy, this additional cost would accrue. And so I'm sure you're all asking, so what are we going to do with the money? So that's $600,000 in savings. What's the plan there? So we are about to go into our annual budgeting process. And so I think that will be an overall budgeting decision as we evaluate not only our local programs, but also our discount and our other operational costs, say reserves and other things like that. So I think that's something that we'd like to raise with you as we go into this budgeting process. But at this point in time, this is an informational item. We plan to bring it back to you next month for a decision, but just wanted to get your feedback on our proposal as it stands. And I think that's it, and we're happy to take questions.
Thank you, JP and Kelly. Appreciate all the work you put into this. I'm going to ask board members to raise your hand if you have any questions or comments. In the meantime, I'm going to ask that our clerk call any public speakers who have indicated a desire to speak on this item.
Jessica Tovar is on the speaker list. I'm going to unmute Jessica now.
Okay, I got it. Jessica Tovar, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I want to echo a statement that was made last night that I thought really hits home, that East Bay Community Energy should not be cutting a low-income program without replacing it with a low-income program or incentive. So yeah, we are concerned about closing enrollment to new low-income customers, and that represents really a loss of a program that was designed to address equity. And we are concerned in the context of that right now, the local development business plan programs heavily favor middle and upper income customers. So we really do urge you to earmark money and specifically to target folks who need it the most, and building the resilience, like the resilience hub infrastructure I mentioned, solar and battery storage for low income folks, to be able to weather the storms that we've been experiencing and we know are coming around again. And certainly in the context, adding the pandemic on top of that is even more concerning. And one of the things to just really highlight is that, we really want to see more of this investment in environmental justice communities, folks who've been left out of the clean energy economy. We are concerned that cutting the net energy metering program would actually be, I guess one of my questions is, can you consider having this program later on when more infrastructure is built, and there's more incentives to help people have access to solar and battery storage? I think that's something to consider, and that if you are going to move $600,000 to something else, that it does come back to the people that it was intended to be instead of put somewhere else. So that is a concern. We have no problem with decreasing the compensation for NEM customers to the lower net surplus, but we are very concerned about a program being cut. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate those comments. Colleagues, while you're considering raising your hand, if you have questions, I do have a question or comment. JP and Kelly, how does this compare, or how is these possible changes compare to how customers might see PG&E and their net metering program, what they do? Is that easy to share?
Yeah, so PG&E pays out customers at the net surplus compensation rate exclusively. So this brings all of our customers more in line with what they might expect from PG&E. The main difference is that PG&E by and large has their customers on that annual true-up, where the customer may find potentially a large bill at the end of their true-up cycle. And with EBCE on the generation side, we do that monthly. It's too bad that Councilmember Monroe is not on our board anymore, because she and I have had some conversations about making sure that our customers understand that there is still the true up on the PG&E side. So I do want to make sure that that's clear should any customers be on the line, particularly in our new communities. There is still a PG&E true up on the distribution side. But otherwise, the cash out is the same. We actually use the net surplus compensation that PG&E publishes every month.
Great, thank you. That's why I was wanted to make sure we share that what's being suggested here is not going to make us look less attractive than PG&E, and that's a key point to make.
Yeah, and Supervisor Kelp, I would just add that we do have a sweep every year to make sure that we can say with confidence that all of our customers are as good with PG&E or better. So that's a mechanism that we've done manually, and we're actually in works now to automate. And it's something that we have to do as there's churn. So customer sells a home or moves out, and we kind of need to true that up in a quick way so that we can bill for whatever is remaining. And so we want to make sure that we can say with confidence that customers are as good or better than they would be with PG&E.
They would be great, excellent. Appreciate that clarification. Let's see, Councilmember Hannan and then Councilmember Kick.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Sometimes, when you hear these presentations and some of these terms are new to you as a board member, it takes a while for it to kind of filter through the old brain cells to try to figure out, I'm sure I have a question somewhere, but I'm never sure how to formulate that question because it's such a new concept to me. One question I had was, as we manage this program, do we charge or do we assess an administrative fee to our customers for kind of managing this program?
That is a great question. We do not assess an administrative fee to administer the program. Customers pay an interconnection fee to PG&E when they first become NEM customers. But no, there is not. It is administratively quite burdensome, as you can imagine, just learning all those new terms. But no, there is not an extra fee for billing our NEM customers.
Okay, and I could see where, certainly not looking to charge customers fees when they're not appropriate, but I could see if the customer is going to walk away with net proceeds because they've done a good job of calculating the amount of energy that they're going to be utilizing, then it makes sense in some cases maybe to be charging them a fee for that calculation of those services that we're now providing to them. Otherwise, I'm simply passing on that fee to all my other customers. So it's a more, as we talk about equity, that would be an equity concern that I would certainly suggest that we think about moving forward. And then again, remember, as we learned in college and high school, no dumb question ever exists. So I want to point that out to my colleagues before I ask this next question. I had you all the way up until that last chart where you talked about the $200,000 savings that we're going to see, and then the $600,000 additional savings that we're going to see over the next period of time. Could you just go back to that chart and just walk it through one more time so I can at least try to see if I can't conceptualize what that looks like? Thank you.
Adrian, can you bring up the second to last slide again, if possible? If not, I think I can maybe open it. on my computer or my screen.
I'm bringing it up right now.
I may have breezed through that, but one thing I wanted to clarify as we're pulling that up is that those two fees are not independent of each other. The assessment that we did was based on the customers that are current new NEM customers for whom we have 12 months of data. And we want to do this assessment on customers we have a full 12 months of data on, because that's the best way to get an accurate assumption. Because in the summer, there's lots of solar, so that's very different than the winter when there's not a lot of solar. And so there's quite a lot of variability in that. And so we did this assessment based on those customers for whom we have 12 months. That's about a third of our customers. And so that analysis shows about a $200,000 savings for 33% of our customers. So when we true that up and say, okay, that's a third, so then we multiply it by 3, that's how we get to $600,000 in savings by changing this program.
Thank you very much. That makes it easier for me to understand.
Okay, and let's see, Councilmember Kick.
So I just want to clarify. So there were 3 NEM systems. You want to cut it down to 1 and not have any enrollments under the low income policy. Did you look at some data of what it would look like if you just took out the 2 options for the non-low income people and municipalities, and we still allowed municipalities and low income developments to participate in the 1 cent incentive, especially with new programs that are rolling out with the resilient homes? I think we may see more low-income developments participating, but is that the same kind of financial incentive that 1 cent would be? And what would that cost be? This question might not make a ton of sense, so I'm sorry if I'm rambling. What would it look like if we still allowed people to enroll in the low income? What kind of savings would that look like? And would it be worth it to still allow that for our low income customers?
I'll address the program side, Kelly, and then maybe you can address the operational question, because I think there's 2 elements to that. One thing I wanted to say is when we offered this NEM program originally, we didn't have any programs, right? We launched it when we started. Since then, we have since launched our Resilient Home program, which has a solar and storage element, has a low income priority, and is also providing incentives and focusing on low income multifamily affordable housing. So it's actually a broader program than this NEM program, because the NEM program really only works for homeowners who can buy a solar system because they live in their home. So since we launched this program, we offered another program that we think is better and is wider, because it addresses renters and multifamily affordable housing units, and we have a solar and storage resilience program for our municipalities. So I think to say we're taking something away without adding something, it doesn't really address the fact that we added something without taking something away. So I think that's one answer. This is certainly the programs we have today that are focused on low income and are focused on resilience and other renewable energy opportunities. Like, we're going to soon offer our disadvantaged community green tariff, which is another solar program focused on care customers who live in disadvantaged communities. Like, this is not the absolute end all of our programs that have solar or disadvantaged communities as a priority. We will continue to add those as well. So, I think we certainly plan to continue building a robust portfolio, across, the categories of programs that we have, and focus on low income and municipal customers for that matter. And maybe Kelly, I'll let you address the operational question.
Yeah, I mean, from an operations perspective, it's certainly more manageable, less administratively burdensome to manage fewer programs, and the act of verifying a customer's sort of program when they are enrolled with EBCE, or when they go from being not solar to to a NEM customer. If we're able to just enroll everyone in the same program, that is certainly easier. We are already today managing the new low income municipal program as it stands. So continuing with that closed population is certainly manageable. Opening that up to a new population, there's obviously conversations of who then that would be. But it's easier to manage fewer options with a population of 550,000
Right.
customers.
Yeah, so I would just suggest, because for a newcomer or someone who might not be all up on this, and they see these new resilient programs and they're like, hey, I thought EBC was helping low-income communities, but they're taking a program away. If we can make that really clear in our marketing and outreach of, we tried this to help this population and we found out it's not the best. So instead, we're going to focus our energies on these other systems that actually will help those same populations. I understand it, but I think however we can put that message out there that we're refocusing our efforts to serve that population better through other programs would be valuable, if this ends up passing and this is what we're going to do, right? Just so people don't feel like we are taking away programs for communities.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any more hands raised, and this is an informational item today, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
We will be back next month, though, for a vote in order to implement in April.
yes, thank you for that reminder. Once again, board members, if you have any follow-up questions after this meeting adjourns, you're welcome, obviously, at all times to email the staff, and they'll do their best to get back to you. Okay, I'm going to move on. We're going to move on to the next agenda item, item 12. This is our Bright Choice procurement floor, also informational item.
Jim is going to present, but let me just preface this kind of very briefly. We last year set a policy to govern how we determine the quantity of renewable energy we procure each year. The purpose here is to provide an update on our application of that policy for this calendar year. So I just wanted to preface that and sort of very clearly state that, because I'm certain there'll be some questions about whether the merits of this policy and how do we improve it or enhance it. And I think that's something we should absolutely just talk about today. But I think just wanted to make sure we're all very clear that this is really a compliance item more than anything. Mr. Jim.
Yep. So good evening, everybody. I think Nick touched on a lot of the details of the background there, but I do want to remind everyone this is an informational item. So we're just kind of telling you what the policy is based on the board adoption of the amended procurement guidelines that were done last April. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of state the procurement target for the current year, or 2021, that applies to the renewable content for Bright Choice. And prior, I'm going to kind of add a little bit to the background too. And so, as Nick stated, last year we came to the board and we provided options for amending the procurement guidelines for Bright Choice. So only Bright Choice, not applying to Brilliant 100 or Renewable 100. And what we did was we set a power procurement renewable floor for Bright Choice that's 5% greater than the previous year for PG&E. And so how this was applied to 2020, the last year. So the 2020 renewable content of Bright Choice was 5% higher than PG&E's forecast for 2019. And so we took the current year, we go backwards a year, we add 5%. And so the renewable content floor for 2020, so last year, was 39.5%. So that was 5% greater than the number that was on that the PG&E had in theirs. So that's kind of a bit of the background. I'm going to speak kind of the methodology of how we do this approach. And so annually, load serving entities and ourselves and PG&E included populate renewable data into something that's called the Renewable Net Short Table. And what this is a place to declare both your forecasts for your current year renewable and your forecasts for future years, and then also state your actual data for past years. So this is in the compliance community, it's a well-known document, it's reliable, and it's publicly available. So we use this document to get a forecast for the previous year, and then we're able to to apply our 5% to get our procurement target for the next year. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. So we use the renewable net short tables. We look at PG&E's data, and we look at the previous year's renewable content. We add 5%, and we set that for our current year target. So now let's speak specifically 2021, since I may have made that sound very confusing, even though it's not. So we're speaking specifically for the renewable content of Right Choice, and this is a procurement floor. So this is the minimum that we're going to buy as renewable content from Right Choice. And so in these renewable net short tables, we call them RNS tables, PG&E's forecast for 2020 was 36.2% renewable. And so we're adding 5% to that. So the current year, 2021's Bright Choice renewable content floor, so a minimum, would be 41.2%. Hope that makes sense to everyone. So we're taking the previous year's forecast in 2020, and then we're adding 5% on to make that our 2021 number. We'll do this every year. So this data usually comes available during the summer. So for example, we'll be deriving 2022's renewable forecast from the current year forecast for PG&E, their 2021 renewable content. And again, apologies if I made that sound more confusing. It makes more sense to me in my head, and I might not have conveyed that well. So again, the gist is to convey that the renewable content floor for Bright Choice for the current year is 41.2%, and that is a minimum renewable content for that plan. And I'll go ahead and pause there for questions.
Thank you. While you're thinking about raising your hand for questions, I'm going to ask our clerk if we have any public speakers for this item.
Yes, we do. Jessica Tovar. I am going to unmute Jessica Tovar now.
Okay, Jessica.
Hi again, Jessica with East Bay Clean Power Alliance. So we support and are excited to see the default product Bright Choice get cleaner over time. And we appreciate that, community choice is good in that it's trying to offer better and more renewables than PG&E. We are concerned about the fact that often, well, it's inevitable, but you work with numbers from the previous year from PG&E. And we see that you're striving to do 5% higher renewables than PG&E, but their numbers you work with are from like the previous year. So we are concerned about the potential and the intention of PG&E to potentially offer more renewables than our community choice program. And so one of our questions was, what happens if PG&E manages to do that? So that is a concern. We do want to see over time more local renewables integrated with the market purchase, mostly because, over time and resiliency wise, that is where the innovation and the benefits come for the local community, including jobs, improving local health, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it.
Thank you, Jessica. Colleagues, any questions or comments for staff on this item? I know the time is late, but questions are always encouraged. Okay, I'm not seeing any. I see one. Councilmember Kick.
Just a question about the policy that was created to be 5% more. Are we looking at when some of PG&E's contracts expire and forecasting when they might have access to more clean renewable energy so we can stay on top of it and always be higher than them? Is this something that we can mid-year change? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we certainly monitor their contracts and their procurement very closely. I think probably the changes might start to occur to PG&E's portfolio in 2023. And so, we'll be monitoring that closely, and I expect this is sort of something we'll be, wanting to, certainly report on, both report on how we are expecting to do and what we're going to be setting for our goals. We also, in December, did pass a goal for 2030 of 100% clean energy. By law, a minimum of that has to be 60% renewables, but our modeling suggests it's going to be more like 70 or 70, a minimum of 70 or 75%. So there's a point at which we move away from comparing ourselves to PG&E and move towards, the trajectory we need to be on to get to that target. I think the other major consideration is we have a 550 megawatts, which is about 20% of our energy in projects that we have already contracted for. And those are, we have one that is operating, one that will soon be operating, and then a handful that will be coming online. We're doing another procurement as we speak to procure another 500 or more megawatts. So as those projects come online, I think that naturally will drive higher levels of renewables. As we start to see some of the resources come out of the PG&E portfolio, that will increase our renewables. And then, probably in the second half of the decade, 2025, 2026 is really when we start to switch from comparing ourselves to PG&E to preparing ourselves to get to 100%.
Thank you. That's a good clarification.
Thank you, Nick. And I'm going to add to that, since for those of you who were here during the years ago, the initial advisory committee before we were actually created, I'm the one who put forward the suggestion that we start out by always having our base product be at least 5% above what PG&E is required to have under the state's RPS. And eventually we kind of got started, and now then we created our product line, and we put that into place, and this is just kind of operationalizing that in one way. And I think it's important, I think we all think it's important from the get-go to make sure that we show ourselves, and especially our base product where most of our members are, that we are cleaner than that big utility alternative. And we have, for the most part, succeeded in that. And it's a challenge for a number of reasons, but I know staff is committed and the board is committed to maintaining that. And like Nick said, up 2030, we hope to be way ahead of the game. So all right. Thank you for that question. I'm not seeing any other hands raised here. I don't see anything else. So and this is an informational item again. So we're going to move on to the next agenda item. Oops, what is the next agenda item? Okay, let me find the agenda. I can tell you what the next agenda item is.
Appointments.
Yes, okay, that's me. And I'm going to, Mr. Clerk, I'm going to share screen. I think I could do that. Let's see here. All right. And I want to just say, as I'm about to share the screen, that I heard from some of the board members over the past few months requesting a certain committee, a suggestion or assignment. I wasn't able to adhere to everybody's request because it's just not possible to do that. But I want to thank everybody for their interest. We now have enough people where everybody could be on one committee, and so that's what we're doing. Not all the committees meet as often as other committees, but I think we have great people on this board and a lot of work to do, and amazingly great staff. I think other CCAs are envious of our staff compilation we have here. And so here is the committee structure I'm proposing. First, if you could let me know if you could see this. Could people see this? Okay, good. Screen share works. So you see all you can see it. You see executive committee with Councilmember Mayor Martinez, Council members Ariola, Lopez, Mayor May, and myself. And then you see the Finance Admin Procurement Committee with Mike Hannon as our chair, and the Marketing, Regulatory, and Ledge Committee with Jaime Patino from Union City as our chair. The Executive Committee meets every month, as it needs to, of course. The Finance and Procurement Committee meets generally every other month, is what the schedule is. Things could change as needed, but that is what it's scheduled to do. And of course, there could be special meetings at the call of the chair for those committees, if that committee in consultation with staff as needed. And the Marketing, Regulatory, and Ledge Committee generally meets quarterly, although if the chair feels there's a need for a meeting more often, the chair could consult with staff and schedule a meeting more often than that. So these are the three committees. Nick, did you have something or Diane, anything else you want to add to this before we take any questions?
No, Chair, thank you very much.
And I do want to first ask for any public comments since this is an agenda item. So Mr. Clerk, can we go to public comment if there is any?
My apologies. I didn't know I was on mute. There's no public comment.
Okay. Okay. And now I'm looking for. That's interesting. I see something that I see this here, and I don't see something else here. Okay, so I'm looking for hands. I see Councilmember Marquez from Hayward, a hand up, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Board President. My question is, I understand that the Finance Admin and Procurement Committee meets, I believe you said, every other month. I'm just wondering, since there are so many new members, will we be asked by staff our availability, or is there already a standard meeting time?
Very good question. I believe there is a meeting scheduled already for March.
We have one meeting. We have one meeting scheduled, and I think thereafter, now that we have a full contingent of members, we will poll the members to find the most convenient time for.
Thank you. That would be my preference. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Councilmember Hannon.
Yes, I was going to agree with Councilmember Marquez regarding the scheduling of the Finance Committee. I know we have one scheduled for March the 10th, and I know that that was a meeting date. I think that had been established by the prior Finance Committee. That would be my guess. But I would like to know, Nick, would it be possible for us to reach out to those current members to see if that date and time is still convenient for everybody? Or if not, is there an alternative date and time that would be convenient? That would be a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. And because I'm screen sharing, for some reason, I can't see everybody's face or the set of participants. So if anybody else has their hand up, I can't see it. And so please just unmute yourself and allow yourself to talk. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. So I would ask for a motion to adopt this as our 2021 committee assignments.
I'll move that we adopt the assignments as presented.
And I'll second. It's Vice Chair Martinez.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, and Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Alameda County. Alameda County.
He had to leave.
Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Berkeley. Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark,
Yes.
Piedmont, Pleasanton,
Yes.
San Leandro,
Aye.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City,
Yes.
Emeryville,
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's willingness to serve. And staff and the chairs of the committees, but mainly staff, will contact each of you in terms of the meeting times and the polling of the times and so on. Okay, and I believe our next item is I'm going to unshare or stop share. There we go. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Next item, I believe, is just the announcements, board or staff announcements. Any other or questions about possible items of future agendas? And I'm going to ask people to raise their hand if you have anything. I'm not seeing any hands. It is an agenda item. Do we need to take a public comment on that agenda item? Probably do, just to make sure. Any public commenters on announcements?
Chair, I do have my hand up.
Oh, I see. My apologies.
That's okay.
Councilmember Marquez, I didn't see that.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to share the exciting news that last night during our Hayward City Council meeting, we did adopt our Hayward Shoreline Master Plan. So looking forward to working with regional partners and highly encourage our surrounding cities to take that into consideration as well. It's one of the measures to combat sea level rising and climate change. So just wanted to share that exciting update with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great news. That's awesome. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Nick, do you have any announcements?
No announcements.
Okay.
I do have an announcement just to share while I have many of you. For all of our new board members, do look out for an email from my colleague Megan Smith, as she is trying to schedule some time for us to have an intro briefing to EBCE, and so please look out for that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we all received an email asking us of possible availability of dates for a full board retreat, primarily on the local development.
Yeah. And actually, just while we're on that topic, because we do have many new board members, the thinking I have is instead of trying to do 1 4 or 5 hour retreat, instead to have a series of 1 hour retreats, certainly optional, focused on a variety of topics, certainly the local development business plan, but also regulatory matters, rate making and regulatory matters, and then one on power procurement as well. I think those certainly are the 3, and then very likely a 4th focused on customer service and marketing initiatives. In that way, we will cover some of the core, and so I expect us to do that sort of once a month over the next 4 months.
Thank you. The local development may need more than 1 hour, but that's a great idea to spread that out. Okay, I'm seeing Mary Sutter. You have a question or comment?
Well, one quick thing, because the CAC will not probably, our new members, excuse me, won't be available in the next couple of months, most likely, probably not until April. If we could tape any of those webinars, if you have those, it would be helpful. And then the new CAC members, if they so choose, have the opportunity to at least watch it. I don't know if these are going to be set to be public, in which case there generally is a video, but I wanted to put that forward.
These will all be public meetings too.
So the video will be online.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'm seeing a Councilmember Patino from Union City.
Yes, this doesn't really directly affect EBCE, but since I have all these council members and mayors here, I just wanted to say one of the boards I sit on in my private life is is for Tiburcio Vasquez Health Center, which is a federally qualified health center. And the community clinics have been the backbone of our response for people in lower income neighborhoods and our people of color in COVID. They were there before COVID, and they're there during, and they will be there after. And I really like to congratulate all of you here for stepping up and making sure that when the community clinics have received these vaccines, to get them out there in the community, that we have been as accommodating as possible to them. The one that's right down the street from my house has very little parking. The city has worked with them and with the local church to get the parking available so we can get these people vaccinated. So I just wanted to thank all of you out there for making sure that these vaccines get to these community clinics and to the people that really need it, because it's really decimated populations of color and people that are economically disadvantaged. So I'd really like to thank all of you for stepping up and making sure that these get out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as we are adjourning, I'd want to just say a happy and meaningful Black History Month to all of us in all our jurisdictions. And I know in each various way, we are all acknowledging and recognizing and celebrating in our own cities. In Oakland, just this morning, we dedicated a street in West Oakland as a new commemorative name of Huey Newton Way, and in honor of his great work over decades ago with the Black Panthers. And I just want to say thank you all for serving on this board, and this meeting is adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry, Lily, did you have a question or a comment?
No, I just wanted to ask also, I just wanted to note last night and just share that we had shared a proclamation condemning anti-Asian sentiments and hate crimes that have been happening, and not just for that community, but for all communities, that we stand united against hate. And so therefore we just wanted to share that and ask that people do recognize that. And I appreciate all of you for understanding, and I will be happy to share the proclamation with anyone who'd like to see it too. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a good op-ed in today's East Bay Times on that very topic. Thank you so much. And once again, this meeting is adjourned. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Be safe.